that something which could probably be called as a political instability of Ukraine is represent nothing more but our attempt to establish the civil society and the self-governing political system, where all the major players, the society, political parties, governmental institutions, president, parliament, whatsoever, will be responsible and will be respecting the rights and the duties of other players. It probably sounds strange to you, but I should remind you that 16 years ago, when we proclaimed ourselves or gained back our independence, we were just a part, ethnical part of the former Soviet Union, with a communist party governing the political society, the business, the economics, whatsoever, so on, so on, so on. Even at the time we made our first steps and our major statements as of the strategic aim to join the European Union, it was probably to the most, it was the will, political will and vision of the political elite. At that time, I am speaking about the period of 1991, 1993, there was no such a thing as the civil society in Ukraine. So it is only our days, before the Orange Revolution and after the Orange Revolution, which we're really witnessing the process of creating something which would really be up to the democratic standards. And again, so we are, I do not believe that, well, I'm not a scientist and I'm not ready to provide you with a clear definition of what is the political instability, but let's take a look. So the democracy is developing itself, the civil society is developing itself. The media feels better and really capable of providing the independent coverage on the political agenda and all kind of issues in Ukraine. Despite all of the economic problems, the economy is growing. More and more international investors are coming to Ukraine. So what kind of political or instability it is? It is the political process, which is quite painful for Ukraine because of the lack of experience and history of democratic self-governance. So yes, from this perspective, it could be called as an instability. But from the point of view of, again, our recent history and probably our future, there is nothing really which is bothering Ukrainians and the majority of the politicians. So it's just the process of defining who is doing what and who is responsible for what and how this or those people should be interfering with other players. So I do not really believe that our recent situation in Ukraine should be called as their instability, and I rather see it as the process of furthering the democratic and all other kinds of reforms. So again, the Orange Revolution was quite important from the point of view of people receiving the assurances that there is no way they could be ignored by the power, by the authorities. So it was quite the next practical achievement of the Orange Revolution was the freedom of press. We still have some problems on trying to assure that our media and our journalists will be free from the influence, not only from the authorities, but also from the owners. It is a part of the problem of the independent press in Ukraine. So unfortunately, till now, we see that the owners are trying to interfere within the editorial policy and trying to dictate what kind of coverage for what kind of events should be provided to Ukrainian public. But still, it is something the society is fully aware of. The journalists are not really, well, some of them are really happy to live under those conditions because it is some financial benefit of this issue. Or this situation leads to some extra payments they receive from the different political parties, business groups, so on, so on, so on. But in general, so the society is strongly opposing this situation and trying to find out the way to break the situation, to make the media fully independent and operating up to the standards of the Western countries. So again, it is another quite clear and major achievement of the Orange Revolution. Also, another achievement, something you call instability, from my perspective, is another achievement because it made their political fight in Ukraine quite visual to the public. Because prior to this period, during the period when we've been run by the regime of President Kuchma, the major political agreements and decisions were taken in a very untransparent way. The public society, probably in all major cases, wasn't a part of the decision-making process. And I mean the society, the political parties which were not supporting the authorities or the president, the NGOs, so on, so on, so on. So it changed, and unfortunately we quite experienced in trying to set up the civilized atmosphere for those discussions and for those political processes. The lack of the political culture is something which is quite clear, could be said about my country. But still, it is this instability, from my perspective, creates more positive trends than the negative trends. So that's probably the answer to your question.
Yes.
Yeah, as follows on from that, you make a very convincing case there for the need to develop civil society and democracy. But one of the key things about the recent crisis was the kind of lack of experience of the elites in terms of political compromise. And you can talk about opposition versus the president, but also the relationship between the president and prime minister. And I'm wondering, from your view, after the recent formation of the government, is there any more? Is there any reason to expect that this is going to change and we are going to get a much more united political elite that don't kind of squabble so much?
You shouldn't be expecting from Ukraine more than you could expect from, let's say, a very well-established Scottish political society.
True.
Well, it is. Yeah, so you're probably aware that there are 450 members of Ukrainian parliament. So to have a majority, you need to have 226 members of the parliament signing the coalition agreement. For this moment, we have 227. So the gap is quite narrow. And under the condition of the lack of this culture, political culture, of course, it creates some dangers for the unstable democracy. But again, those dangers are quite clear for society. In most of the cases, they link to another profound problem of my country, is the corruption. And here we're speaking not only about the economic corruption, but mostly about political corruption. So, yes, there are some fears that under the conditions or under the on the recent stage of the Ukrainian developments or internal political developments, this government cannot be cannot operate to the full extent and cannot feel itself self-assured. But again, probably it is even for our good than for our worth, because this government feels that it needs to be in the contact, permanent contact with all of the spheres, with the business, with the NGOs, with the political parties. So yes, it's quite. I couldn't. Well, I have no idea how it is difficult for Madame Tymoshenko to find a compromise with all of the major political players, but I feel, as a citizen of the country, I feel that it is for our good, that she feels it is something she must do. Because again, the previous coalition was consisting of something 200 at the beginning, 240, 50 members. Then it's upgraded